Now, Cyntoia Brown has had a very difficult life and is facing a lot of prison time. Now, back when she was a teenager, 16 years old, she was sentenced to life in prison for killing what would have been her rapist. Now, she was, as I said before, 16 when she was sentenced to life. This was back in 2004. Now, last week, or I should say the week before, the Tennessee Supreme Court ruled that she would have to serve 51 years in prison before she could be eligible for release. Now, since that story has come out and gone viral, a lot of people have been rallying to her defense, and I think that's great because it stands in stark contrast to some of the stories that we did earlier this week. One of them involved a man who had allegedly raped a woman at a party, just getting on, I think it was 3 years of probation for this rape. Now, she was also allegedly drugged, and they decided, oh, let's give you a plea deal. Let's have you plea, put a plea deal in, and then we're just going to give you probation. We don't want to ruin your life, but when it comes to someone defending themselves against rape, well, then we're going to throw the book at you. Now, what happened? Let me give you some details here. Now, Brown was convicted of murder and robbery for killing 43-year-old Johnny Mitchell Allen in 2004 after he had solicited her for sex and brought her to his home. Now, the thing about that is that, look, you can't, first of all, she is underage, so she would be considered a sex trafficking victim. So that's serious in itself. So what he did was definitely illegal, right? So now you could say, but wait a minute, she shot him, she killed him. Yes, because she feared for her life. In fact, she says, it was in self-defense. I thought he was going to kill me. So he takes me into his home surrounded by weapons. Weapons. And I'm afraid that if I said no to him, because I didn't want to do this, I didn't want to be trafficked out. I didn't want to do this stuff for money for my boyfriend named Cutthroat, right? Who was abusive, by the way. I didn't want to do this. So I took my handgun out and I shot him before he could kill me. So now her story is incredibly sad because she says that she had to run away from her adopted family and was living with an abusive boyfriend who was also a pimp. So his name, as I said before, was Cutthroat. And Brown's lawyers alleged that Cutthroat had raped Brown and forced her into prostitution, which, again, it's not prostitution, it's trafficking, since she was literally underage. And she claimed that on the day of the murder, he had hit her and insisted that she had go out and bring him some money. And so this 43-year-old guy, basically a pedophile, says, oh yeah, no, I want to take her home, takes her into his, I believe it was an apartment, after showing her his guns, basically signaling, if you don't do what I want you to do, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to use these against you, and I'm going to kill you. In fact, Allen had reached under his bed, according to the report. Brown thought that, oh my God, he's reaching for a gun, he's going to kill me. So she shot him. Now, prosecutors had argued successfully, apparently, oh no, that's not what happened. No, she was going to rob him anyway. So, oh, and since she did take his wallet and his truck, well then, case closed. 51 years in prison, lock the door, throw away the key. So that's the situation, right? That's what happened. But here's the thing though. Her boyfriend was abusive and threatening. And so, I mean, look, think about what would have happened had she not come home with that money. She could have been the one that had ended up dead that day. So now, this is a horrible situation, as I said before. And she was surrounded by horrible people. And I think she did what she thought she had to do to defend herself, to save her own life. But here you have the great state of Tennessee saying, we don't care. We don't care. Now, again, you juxtapose that with the case of, for example, Brock Turner. Well, Brock Turner raped a woman behind a dumpster, and guess what? He basically went free. Barely served any jail time. And then of that other case that I mentioned earlier. And they do it, well, obviously I don't want to ruin your life, but ruin a young woman's life. Ruin Cyntoia Brown's life. Well, of course, that's okay. This is an example of the two-tier justice system. They seem to reserve older sympathy for young white men, or even older white men who shoot and kill people. For example, George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman was weak and pathetic. He was so weak and pathetic that he thought Trayvon Martin, who was armed with Skittles and iced tea, was a threat to him. So he murdered him, shot him. He's still walking free, and by the way, has been accused of domestic violence and arrested numerous times since then. That's just one example. There are so many examples of men being able to defend themselves. They get away with it. But when women, especially women of color, do it, they end up getting put away for life. That's a disastrous story. And it's not right. Now, thanks to the backlash, Tennessee's starting to look at it like, you know what? Maybe we should look at this, and maybe we should reconsider letting her get on parole. And I think that's the right way to go, because right now, what justice is being served keeping her in prison? What justice is being served? No, she deserves actual justice, not the kind of blind justice that we have right now that only seems to defend people who already have all the power. So, look, I think that we need to, free Cyntoia Brown and to help her get her life together. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.